Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Stars Like Us. I am your host, Aliza, and I am here with the one and only Rachel True. This is a dream come true. I'm sure you get so many true puns that was just that you're so fucking over it. But hey, for me, it was true. And you are an actor, you are an author, you are a tarot creator, you are a fellow Capricorn Rising, which is just so comforting and soothing to me.
Which means I think we're sisters in practicality.
Yes, absolutely. Sisters and sisters on chip on the shoulder. One of my favorite things that I always tell other Capricorn risings is that, okay, if you accept that you always have a chip on your shoulder and that nothing is ever good enough and that nothing goes according to plan and you have to work harder than everyone and you don't see the rewards everyone else does, then how do you assess a situation?
Yes, but let me just throw in that I think I'm going to hazard to say that as we grow and get older, mature, whatever, it doesn't matter age, just maturity. I have seen that shift a bit in myself, by the way. I don't think it stays. Maybe it does, depending on your chart. You could tell somebody, but
you are right. You are right. Yeah. It does. And Capricorn is one of the signs that age backwards. So it does get easier and easier as you get older.
I think you're just I was just having a conversation with somebody about how it's sort of the 4 agreements. We weren't talking about that, but not taking things personally.
Totally.
Is such a huge weight off anyone's shoulders. Read the 4 agreements because they're good. They're all 4 of them make sense. But that one, not taking things personally, I think is so important for a Capricorn because you only get your feathers ruffled, but you're like, it's not good enough. And then you take it personally that it wasn't done good enough. And if you take that out of it and just go, well, it's not good enough, how can I fix it? The other side of Capricorn, the practical side.
Totally. Absolutely. And you also are a Capricorn moon. So you're double Capricorn.
Which I didn't know till about last year because I was like, oh, I must have something exotic as my moon. And I'm like, no, really?
Well, you do. I mean, your moon is in the 12th house. What
does that mean?
Oh, let's just get right into it. So
yeah, wait. Also, I want to say thank you so much for having me on. By the way, I am learned in tarot and other esoteric arts, and you gave me a lovely intro. I would just call myself an artist, basically, right? But I'm learning about astrology and all that. I don't know as much as some people, so I know more than some people, but not as much as others. So I'm delighted to hear and learn from you today.
Cool. Well, I'm really glad that you're here, and you're also. We should just finish up our big 3 and mention that you are a Scorpio Sun. So for any listeners out there, if you are big 3 twins with Rachel, it would have to be Scorpio Sun, Cap Moon, and Cap Rising.
And then I think I'm a Scorpio Venus.
You also have, you have a little Scorpio stellium, which is 3 or more planets in the same sign or house.
I think I knew that.
Yes.
I'm finally
learning. So, but I was actually just looking at Irina, I don't know her last name, but Irina, the model who is now dating Kanye's chart, and she has Capricorn, and so I know, very thrilling. She has Capricorn and Scorpio, and I was sort of musing to myself about what a wonderful pair Capricorn and Scorpio are together.
Really?
Yes, they form what is called a sextile as the aspect, and sextiles are my favorite aspect because it's really it's like someone coming up to you and whispering a piece of important information into your ear. And then you're like, oh, got it. I wouldn't have been able to surmise that on my own, but that important little piece of information that you provided, you being either the Scorpio to the Capricorn or the Capricorn to the Scorpio, helps and clarifies it. Thank you. So that's how a sextile functions. And I think Scorpio and Capricorn have a really special bond because they both respect each other very much. So you have that playing out in your own chart, between your rising and your sun, your moon as well, even though your moon is at a little bit of a lower degree, but even still having those Capricorn, Scorpio elements, this doesn't necessarily mean that your life is going to be easy, but at least there's a nice flow between those 2 placements.
Gotcha. I feel again, not knowing much about astrology, listeners, or enough, but I look at my chart, I'm like, I need some air. I don't have much air in there, do I?
Let me see.
Not enough.
Oh my God, you have no fucking air in your chart at all.
Do I have Libra somewhere?
You do have every zodiac sign in your chart, but you don't have any placements or planets
Right.
in an air sign.
That's a little fucked up, people. I'm not gonna lie.
So you know what that means. You have to find, so air in your chart falls in your first house. It falls in your fifth house of creativity. It falls in your eighth and ninth houses. So this means that it's important for you to hang out with airy people, you know, they're going to balance you out. You want to get some air in your life. So you're going to want to, you know, find yourself connected to air people. And then you're also going to want to do airy things like podcasts are very, very airy. So this helps to sort of bring that energy into your life if you don't have that embedded into your chart in the placement. It
makes sense because I think I'm a clever person and I very much like using my brain, you know, so I don't think I'm air deficient, but at the same time, when I looked at it, I was like, I ain't got no air. I was raised by 2 Geminis. So
you had enough.
Yeah. And I seem to date air men and that always doesn't, you know, not so much. But I'm drawn to that I think different kind of less emotional energy. Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, air is so neutral. Air is
it's less excitable in a way, but when it's excited, it's awful. But it's less excited. I like it. So it's something I'm working towards, but that's something you could probably tell me about my chart.
Yes, I mean, there's also like the progress chart, which is your chart as it has changed over time, because using the technique of progressions, you're not the same person you were when you were born.
For sure. And I had a question about that because, again, I'm learning with the progress chart. Does that mean, for instance, when I look at my horoscope, even though I have so much Capricorn in my chart, it doesn't always resonate as much as Scorpio does, to be honest. But now that I'm looking at my progress chart, should I be looking at, say, Capricorn and Aquarius or the signs further along? You tell me, ask the naive woman.
No, I would say
she's like, no, Rachel, no.
No, I mean, it's a good question. And oftentimes people ask, I mean, the more obviously like the less advanced version of that question is, should I be reading for my rising sign instead of my sun sign in horoscopes? But at least when I write horoscopes, I write them from a solar vantage. I really write them from the perspective of the sun and like how the sun wants to shine, which is going to always be sort of structured around like, well, what does your solar energy look like? And for you, that's in Scorpio. So what does your solar energy want to do?
But I also get... Oh, sorry, but I get rising and sun signs too, because I'm a very extroverted introvert, right? So the Capricorn, I think, is the more extroverted I can be, do stuff and out in the world. And Scorpio side, I think, is the introverted. I just have to stare at a wall after I exert a lot of energy to recoup. So,
well, interestingly, your Scorpio is in your 11th house, which even though you don't have any placements in air, the 11th house is one of the air houses. It's a social house. And it's all about community, and it's about technology, and it's about media, and it's about expanding your horizon. So even though you have a scorpionic approach to that, the themes where you're going to see your sun sign play out is in air sign ways. So it actually still is going to be operating in some way, shape, or form, kind of like an Aquarius.
Oh, gotcha. But I wouldn't check those. I just kind of keep checking on Scorpio.
Yes, especially because horoscopes are invitations. They are certainly not to be taken literally. There's absolutely no possible way that 12 different horoscopes could apply to everybody. You know what I mean?
I do. And I always say that same thing about general tarot readings too. I mean, listen, people, their collective consciousness is a real thing. You can pick up on the energy, but everybody is an individual with free will or fate chomping at their back. I don't know, but it's not going to be applicable. So I always say with tarot readings on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, like, just know that you're almost choosing it like a TV show in a sense, which is a little different than an astrology reading, which I think digs in a little more, frankly. But a tarot reading on social media, you can take it, but you've also got to know that you're choosing to watch the one that says you're going to get the person, or you're choosing to watch the one that says you're free, or you're choosing. And then you got to see what resonates. And I'm not saying you can't get a real reading off it, but this is why I wrote my book and kept it reasonably priced so that people could learn to do it themselves. to be honest. I love empowering people, and I love that you're doing a podcast like this too, so that people can kind of learn some of this themselves.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes.
empowering, I think, to know how this stuff is not out of reach for everybody, but it does take, like, to get to your point, it takes a lot of hours, it takes hours of study.
Yes. And I think that, to your point, it's also, on one hand, these tools are extraordinarily empowering, but then on the flip side, they can also be tools for manipulation, right? You have to be really careful.
Please.
And
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it's the reason to learn is not because it's, good for your health. It's because it's good for your mental health. And you need to also know how to, if you're going to work with tarot or astrology or anything metaphysical, it's important for you to not become too dependent on a person, an interpretation, something that you don't understand, because then it falls into that really toxic sort of like fortune telling, like, oh my God, do I make a decision based on this?
It also leaves the door open. And this is not a lot of people, but this is some people, and I feel remiss not to mention it, but there are charlatans in every field, todos, every field, whether it's a teacher, a dentist, whatever. So it's not specific to this field, but there are, when I see some of this stuff on YouTube, I'm like, that's a Vegas card shark. Who got a deck, and that's okay, man. But what I'm saying is, it's so much more empowering to learn it yourself, or with astrology, which is a lot tougher to figure out who you resonate with and who's not trying to grift you.
Totally. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I don't want to waste too much time on that, but it was really in me when I worked on the book to go, no, man, it's not easy, but it's easier than you think, because it's all about you. Everybody loves to talk all about them, or we all think about ourselves all the time. So here's a way to take that energy, which could become toxic and narcissistic or self-centered, but to take it for our own betterment and use it to get in touch with our higher selves and figure out what we're really trying to do. And so that we can get out of our own way. I think myself, like a lot of people, I had to learn to get out of my own way and stop putting up roadblocks and making them, so tarot, and especially astrology. I love, like, one thing I love astrology for people is certain days. Now, it's tougher when you're doing a general horoscope, right? But they'll give you good and bad days for the month. I think it's always not a bad idea to just clock them. It doesn't mean I'm looking for trouble on the bad days, but I tend to lay a little lower, or not answer every phone call that day. That's just how I do it, depending on if it has resonated with me. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. Ignore it. But I like a horary chart. Horary, I can't say that word, but horary chart. I say like an old Jewish man.
Horary. Yeah,
it's
you can always say it like an old Jewish man.
It's in horary. But I think those are interesting too, if you have a good astrologer. Same as a tarot reading that is specific to you. But same as with tarot reading, the energy can be ethereal in us. It can get the energy it comes and goes, and we're always becoming something else. You can do a reading, and if it's maybe not the most optimistic, just know that that's just the reading in that moment. Or if you get a really horoscope that's like, your day is shit, it's just that moment. It's not your life. Todos.
So how did you get started on your tarot journey, and how did the book and the deck come to be?
Well, I kind of write about this in the book, but I lived in New York City as a kid. And so I was in foster care from like 0 to 4. And then when I went to live with my dad at 4, he had a big bookcase that I called the library. And in it, the books I would pull down were Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil and Carl Jung's Man and His Symbols. And I could read. My stepmother taught us to read really young. So 4 or 5, I could read, but obviously I wasn't really reading these books, right? I was just picking out some words and looking at the imagery. So cut to around 8 years old, one of my parents' friends had a tarot deck with them. And I was like, oh my God, this is like that. This is like the same thing. This is like those pictures we're talking. These pictures are reminding me of that. It all seemed connected. And I put it together that it was a language, basically.
Wow.
And an energetic language, or whatever, pictorial keys, but an energetic language that I could learn. So I studied, on my own as a kid and a teenager, always had decks. And then when I was in college, I started to get books. Like I just did an event with Mary Kay Greer, who I adore, because those are some of the books. Like I didn't have the internet was around then, but it wasn't like now. It wasn't a library. So I had to go to the books and the actual library. Mary Kay Greer's workbooks and books I love because her Jungian tarot approach really resonated with me, because I've said this before to people, like I just feel like little baby witchlings, newly minted baby witchlings out there. Hello. But also you got to learn to walk before you ride your broomstick. So part of that is doing the work. And just because we're in a modern world where you could just look it up or read something and that's it, and you know it all, I'm like, no. I really believe in the Malcolm Gladwell aspect of if you put in 10,000 hours to something. So I think I thought I'll write this book because I want people to learn this. It's not some weird thing over there that was maligned in the satanic panic 80s and not so popular in the 90s. It is a tool, because if you really understand yourself and are connected to your higher self, soul, or spirit, then it opens up your intuition and your psychic abilities and all the things all the baby witches and all the witches want, but nobody wants to start at the beginning sometimes. So, maybe that's an old school Gen X approach, but I felt like in today's world, it was important because there's like a new thing where people research. It's a study they've done. They've shown that people will Google something, and even if they don't get the answer they're looking for, the right answer, they think they are knowledgeable in that subject now. And
that's a frightening study.
No, it's a true thing. And there's also an effect called, I believe it's called, I'm writing about this for my next book, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where again, people learn a teeny bit about astrology, and now they have an Instagram or a TikTok or a YouTube channel with 100,000 or more followers. And so you believe in the hype of yourself. Now, I love tarot because it strips away all your bullshit. And that's coming from me, an actor in Hollywood. So I had to be able to have that duality of who am I really? And then who is my outward persona? And tarot is really great at that. And if you know who you are really, then you can be the psychic witch you want to be. And to that end, by the way, I don't like labels, which is different than this new generations. I get everybody's like, I am this, and loves a label. It's just a little different for us Gen Xers because we were breaking free of our parents' boomers labels. So I respect the labels of today. I'm saying for me personally, not a label freak. So I never loved say witch because I was like, well, I'm not part of a coven. I'm not part of this. But do I have 6 million witchy habits? Yes.
Right. Like you could look at the math and see what it adds up to, but we don't necessarily need to call it that.
But also, and by today's standards, it's like you have to meet all these different things. I'm like, I don't know about all that. I just know.
Well, yeah. I feel like, I'm definitely of the older demographic for TikTok, and I have found it to be a really interesting and terrifying little environment. I posted something, that I thought I was being so cheeky, and I thought that I was being so relevant in doing this little video about like not manifesting during eclipse season. And the responses that I got, the duets that I got were so hostile, accusing me, saying I was fear mongering, like I'm doing it for clout. And I was like, wait, first of all, like, isn't anyone who's using TikTok doing it for clout in one way or another? Like, second of all, this is my practice. Like, I thought that you're supposed to come on and say what you do. Am I doing this wrong? And then I've talked to some younger kids about it, and they were like, no, it's because people do say like really crazy, terrifying, shocking, horrific things to try to get attention, and people are wary of that. And it's like, okay, that's bad, people shouldn't do that, but like this isn't that. But I think that it's just getting everything all distorted.
I think we're in an interesting place with all that. We'll see where it ends up, because I hear you and I agree. Like I had a few people hit me up and say, well, your interpretations are wrong, and I'm like I don't answer them. But my feeling with that is, hey, people, man, people, ladies, they, them, everybody, todos. There's many interpretations, period. There are many interpretations, and you should take what resonates, and that's that. You don't need to, you could talk about it amongst your friends, but the need to contact me, the author, and tell me I am wrong, that speaks of another psychological thing on their part of needing to feel powerful.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's not for me to worry about. That's someone else's baggage. I got my own over here to look at, but I don't worry about that. But I think, oh, it's a little narrow-minded then. If you think it's wrong or right, there's no in between. Life is very gray.
But I think that it's interesting to think about this like Google effect that you're talking about, and that on a generational level, because I also grew up where you would have to go to a bookstore or a library in order to
like you're in that little in between.
I think born in the 80s. So like I was still, in my childhood and even into my middle school. And, I think Google became a thing maybe when I was in high school. But
the 90s, the internet was there, but it was more a static thing.
Yeah, I was on Alta Vista. Like it was a different time. It was, I was going into my Beanie Baby chat rooms and cybering with people when I was 9. That was cool. But like it was definitely, nobody was using the internet to become an expert.
We are in an era of everyone is an expert. And so that's why I do lean a little into like, listen, I've been doing this for decades and decades and decades and decades and decades. So I felt comfortable enough to write a book at this point, knowing that I am always going to be a student of tarot, period, end of story. That's the truth. Like, people will ask, what's your favorite card? And I'm like, it's always evolving, right? Depending on where I'm at in my life and things like that. And so I guess I wish people coming up now would just realize like, it's a never ending process. And we are always growing and becoming something else. So the second you think you got it all in the bag and you know everything about tarot, you don't, or everything about astrology, you probably don't.
I mean, the whole point is the fact that you're never going to know everything about it.
I think so, for me, but again, I understand that if there's so much information at your fingertips and you see it and you're like, I know it, I got it, I know it, I got it. I think most people though will find you hit a plateau, just like we all did in our own practices and lives and love lives and whatever it is, right? You hit a plateau and then you realize, oh, now's when I probably go back and refresh and really dig in and look. And I think that's important to do. Even when I was working on the book, I was well aware there were so many interpretations. And that's why I call them interpretations, people, not definitions, because this is my interpretation. And some of them are a little more traditional, actually, and really old school. Like my the Four of Pentacles on YouTube has become, they're holding on to you. And I'm like, is it? I don't know. Or the Prince of Swords, Page of Swords, Princess of Swords has become their spying on you card. Now, I could see maybe, but I also personally, I think the Four of Cups, where someone's offering you a cup that you're not necessarily into or vice versa, that would seem to indicate someone's looking at you that you're not paying attention to. I'm not disagreeing with the Page of Swords. I'm saying these modern interpretations of the cards are fine. We're layering them in, but we're losing some of the old interpretations. Whereas, like I said, the Four of Pentacles is about holding on to things, right? The person is holding on to the coins and they're a bit miserly, but it doesn't imply necessarily they're holding on to you like that. It's almost, to me, that card reads as they're holding on to themselves and their stuff. It's an insular card. When you look at all the fours, the Four of Swords, right? That's the person alone. They're alone cards. Four of Cups, alone with someone looking at them. Even Four of Wands. These are cards. So to say that's someone who can't stop thinking about you with the Four of Pentacles, I'm like, I don't know. It would depend on the other cards around it.
Totally.
The other cards would dictate what that card means. And a lot of the readers aren't doing necessarily spreads, which I'm fine. I pull just card after card too, but I love a spread for you newbies. I really do, because if the deck, which is not magical, any deck you pick up is just cardboard, people. It is how the images viscerally hit you and what that spurs in you. That's the magic, first of all, right? Like, not the actual deck. It is the beauty of art and the imagery and what that unlocks in us. So I just kind of think you can learn off the web, but I'm very into getting a book and different schools of thought. You have Rachel Pollack and her books, right? Some of those are a little dense and headier. You have so many there's Starhawk and the Spiral Dance from the 80s, which is another great book. There's so many old and new books and so many beautiful new decks out there that there's room for all of them. That's what I keep saying to people. It's not this isn't a Highlander approach where Rachel True is a deck out. So no, there are room for many decks. My deck is meant to feel like a comfortable hug or a blanket. You know, other decks that I use are tougher. Sometimes I'm like, give it to me. How do you say this? Thoth or thoth? I always say it wrong, but I'm like, bitch, give me tough, and I'll pull that deck out, you know? So I use decks for different moods, and I know I'm kind of going off
that
on
deck
that.
is the Thoth deck is
Brutal.
brutal.
So, but sometimes I want it brutal. For instance, seven of Pentacles in Thoth, it literally says failure down at the bottom, right? Now, in my deck and other decks, and I kind of was inspired by Mother Peace's version.
I love that deck so much.
Me too. It's such a beautiful, gentle deck, and they go with an older more traditional thing, which is going into yourself and taking care of your stuff at home, your own stuff. Because we forget Pentacles are tangible, right? Earth's energy, practicality, Capricorn things you got to deal with, right? And I think Mother Peace actually is someone kneading and baking some bread in a little enclosed thing. That's their version of Four of Pentacles. I think you got to synthesize all these different meanings. That's when we know tarot better, is when we ping at all the different things, and the one that is the truthful resonation of that card. The other thing I do in my book is I just never liked reversals when I was a kid. My eye didn't like it. I think I'm not even kidding about this. Like I not autistic, but the way my brain works is very weird. So for math, I had to learn by pictures. It was very hard for me with numbers.
Well, I would also wonder, because I don't like reversals either. And I take things very literally, which I found out is not how everybody else feels. I wonder if this is like because I have a lot of Capricorn.
Negative. Oh, reversal felt a little negative, but also as a kid, I was like, it's upside down. I can't fucking see the imagery. What's happening? So what I learned to do was, as a kid, wrote about it in my book, high or low vibe, keep them all upright. And then you got to really use your intuition, because if you get, let's say, I'm looking for love in all the right places, maybe this time. And let's say I get the Empress, but I have no love going on. And it's a day where I'm like, I don't have any love. And I get the Empress. Well, obviously it's not reversed and there's no love. It's just, that's either neutral or low vibe, meaning there's that possibility, but you don't have it right now. It's not realized, but it gives me the hope that there's the possibility for it, right? Or if it's in low vibe, I got to go, well, am I driving it away with negative thoughts? Am I sitting here going, I'm never going to find it. I'm never going to, am I leaning into the low vibe energy, of the Empress? Am I leaning too heavily into, I can't create, I can't manifest, I can't, negative anxiety thoughts? Because that's the low vibe. It's really not that hard. People get so confused by reversals. I'm like, people, it's really just that upright energy blocked. You know, it can feel blocked. And the same thing with court cards. People get so confused. Mary Kay Greer breaks down court cards so well. She has a book out, a reissue of one of her books called Archetypal Tarot, if you want to dig into court cards too. But they're sides of people. They are sides of yourself, mostly. And then there also can be other people, absolutely, right? But does a court card always mean there's a third party interloper in your relationship? No, not always. Just like if you learn tarot off YouTube, you think any 3 card means they're cheating on you. That is not always the case. It's just not. But it makes for a good YouTube video that you keep listening to, and you want to donate money to them so you can. That's what I'm saying. You got to learn to use your intuition to discern what is. Sorry, go ahead.
No. That's exactly, I think that you hit the nail on the head, which is that you're going to get a lot more views, bites, likes, whatever, if you say something controversial, which
that's right.
I get, fine. But it also makes it it does do damage to metaphysical practice, because it puts metaphysics on that moral binary of good and bad. And the whole beauty of it is that it's neutral, you know?
Well, and
the
also
whole beauty is that it's interpretive.
I find, yes, absolutely, it is interpretive. You're going to see something that I don't. It is interpretive. And then I find that everybody's a critic these days too. Like there's a whole subculture of reaction videos, right? So then there's a reaction video to you putting up your video, or a reaction video to a reading I did for a celebrity. And I'm like, this is where I struggle, because part of me is like, get off my lawn. I don't give a fuck what you think. That's the tough Capricorn side, right? And then there's another side that's like, do whatever you want, kids, adults, kids, doesn't matter. But I would think it would feel more great to create something yourself. than to simply critique someone else's work. And I'm not talking about people who are critics. There are people who are critics, but if that's what you do and you're only critiquing other people's work, I would again invite you to go, that's great. Now I invite you to create something of your own and have a bunch of strangers critique it.
Yeah, for sure. There's the Scorpio.
I
There's the Scorpio
I
that
know.
popped out.
I can't help it. I try to lean into like more neutral, but it's hard because Scorpios for the most part kind of, those barbs, they come out like so quickly, they come so quick and fast for a Scorpio that I try to slow my brain down and
I'm obsessed with nature documentaries. I watch them fanatically. And I was rewatching Night on Earth, which is on Netflix. Highly recommend. And I was rewatching it last night, and I rewatched the scene where there's like the Scorpio mating dance. And I had this whole breakthrough about the zodiac sign through the way that those Scorpions.
What? Okay, wait, what sign is meant for me? Because I can't seem to.
Oh, well, who will your mating dance be with? Let's look.
Yeah, I'm interested in this only because some people, and I'm going to say this because one of my younger friends said, I remembered this and it helped me when I was younger. She was in her early 30s and she wanted early mid 30s and wanted kids. And I was like, you know what? And I was way older than her, 10 or 15. And I was like, you should have them. You should do it. You have to make it a priority or it's not going to happen, And I feel like with love, I needed someone to have said that to me younger, but they didn't, which is you need to make it a priority or it may not happen. And it doesn't mean I've had plenty of great love and lovers in my life. Trust me. But I've always been kind of focused on myself and career and things like that. So I'm like, oh shit, how do I incorporate this in before I shuffle off?
So a few different things. So upcoming, so you have your Saturn in Pisces at 23 degrees of Pisces.
That sounds watery.
It's very watery. I mean, you have a very beautiful psychic intuitive chart. You do. So
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one.
That makes relationships hard, right? Because because you can anticipate a lot of things that maybe the other person hasn't even reconciled yet, or they don't even know they're feeling. You might be able to sort of pull out those feelings for them. And then either you're then holding them and taking responsibility, or they're like, I don't want to have that feeling, so I'm going to make you the problem instead of the solution.
No, I do think being for all intuitive people, not just my chart, it's a little tricky because I used to be the person who would ask the one question, which went to killed the person, a stranger or not. And I didn't even know, Right. But I was picking up on something that made them uncomfortable.
Right. And that they didn't even know made them uncomfortable. So they didn't even have the language to communicate like, hey, when you said that, it triggered me, because you're operating on like a psychic, nonverbal level, and they're not ready to receive it.
Aliza, here's where I struggle with this, but I'm trying to stay au courant. People will say you triggered me. And again, my generation is like, you are triggered. You have, again, if I did something mean and untoward, I must apologize. I'm a Scorpio that way. But if I say something innocent and you are triggered, who's the onus on there? Like I remember saying to a friend of mine who struggles with anxiety, and she had run into someone who they said something and it really hurt my, and I said, right, but they're never going to change. They're not going to change. The only thing we can change are our own triggers.
Yes. I think that a healthy relationship is going to have a reciprocity flow of that in a really healthy way. I mean, this actually,
that's true. You're right.
In a healthy friendship just happened with my partner, where he said something. I mean, it's really ridiculous. I don't know how he'll feel about me broadcasting it, but we were talking about. You can
always cut it out.
I'm not going to. We were talking about, the United States being what it is. And he was like, sometimes I feel like I just want to, leave and go off to Northern Canada and I immediately, because I had a roommate when I lived in LA who actually went to the woods to die and left me with all of the bill and the rent, and it was a disaster. It was a horribly insensitive thing to do to a 24-year-old girl. so when he said that, got so upset, and I was like, so you're just gonna leave, you're just gonna go
but
and
you
blow it
didn't
all
even,
up.
but you probably didn't even know why in the very first
In the
moment.
instant,
You
no, I
didn't know
didn't. I was
why.
just
You
like,
were just like,
abandonment issues,
roar.
right? Abandonment issues
Right.
immediately come through.
Yes, yes,
And then he
yes.
was like, you didn't even let me finish what I was saying. He was like, I'm being dramatic. And I was like, but you should know better than to say something that would imply that you're going to leave me when I have abandonment issues. And like, this scenario has already happened in my life. And you know that. And he was like, okay, but you're really reactive right now. And I was like, but I'm reactive because you made me reactive.
But see, that's where I, as a Gen Xer, I'm like, oh, did I?
I know. It's a
Or
fine
were
line.
you?
It's a fine line.
Because, but to me, the most enlightened way, which I couldn't have done in the moment either, I'm a Scorpio, would have been to say, I am triggered, not you made me. It's a syntax thing.
Totally.
I am being triggered. I am me. My abandonment issues, not
Totally.
you're making me. But again, I'm working with that. People are listening and judging me. Listen, I'm just saying I'm a Black woman of a certain age who had to be tough as fuck to get to where I am. Do you know what I'm saying? To still be standing. So I have a practicality in me where it's like, I can't fucking change them.
Totally.
So, but I hear you. I was in foster care, abandonment issues, right? So I get triggered,
Totally.
you know, and in my last great relationship, or not great, but a last thing I had, I saw it flare up. We weren't able to kind of, but to round it back to what you said, I thought, you know what though? Once I got over that thing, I thought the right partner will go, babe, you're being triggered. I see that this is not about what we're talking about. So what's going on with you? Totally. Someday I dream of a man who says that to me.
Yeah, and I would say,
but I'll do the same for him.
The way that the conversation was the way we were able to recover from that was more or less like, you know, I had to take responsibility for the fact that what he said specifically hurt me. But it's also okay for me to react based on who I am and where I've come from and how much I used to just store things inside and not say anything. Me actually communicating in real time, ouch, is fine.
No, for sure. I think I'm reacting tough because I've noticed on Instagram, there's a lot of accounts with people calling other, like faux pop psychology, right? Which we all do a little bit. It's part of the job, the gig. But I think when you're out there calling people narcissists, or you've read one book on attachment theory and you now think you're an expert, it's fucking dangerous as fuck. And I like all those books, man. You should read the books on attachment theory, but then to go on and propel yourself as an expert on that, I think is incorrect online, because a lot of them take away the onus. You just said, what you said is true. It's okay for you to have that reaction. You also need to own it and figure out where, how, why, because it's not entirely fair for your partner. But then again, your partner needs to be sensitive to your needs. One of the best things I like about the Science of Attachment book, and I'm forgetting the authors, but it's the one with the red stripe on the cover, is they give you exercises. Let's say you're insecure and your partner is secure or aloof. You say, babe, or whatever you call them, I know it's going to seem weird to you, but would you mind sending me a text like maybe 3 times a day? If I hear from you 3 times a day, all of a sudden I feel really secure, and I need that. Would you be able to do that? And if they're like, oh, that's weird, but okay, then fine. But if they're like, fuck you, what the fuck you needy bitch, that's a sign you're not compatible. It's not a sign they're a narcissist. Yes. It's not actually a sign they're a narcissist, by the way. They may be an asshole, but doesn't make them a narcissist technically. It just means you're not a couple then, even if you're like me, where you're like, but I loves them.
Yeah. No, I mean, I say this to people all the time when it comes to, for instance, sex, like someone who wants to have sex and then never talk to you again doesn't make them a bad person. What the problem
doesn't make them a narcissist.
The problem is that wasn't communicated, that you didn't communicate where how you want to have sex. Yeah.
And American women, less your age, by the way, because you're a baby. You're the youngest of the millennials, or are you even younger?
I'm the older of the millennials.
Okay, so you're a millennial, and right, and I'm a Gen Xer, and I just think there is a little bit of difference in that, but I do think millennials owning some of their behavior is important, and you're doing it. Frankly.
Yes. I mean, also part of, unfortunately, the joys and the curse of being a Capricorn rising is growing up super fucking fast. So a lot of the
Yeah, you know what?
lessons.
When I picture myself as a kid, which I did smoke cigarettes from like 18 to forever, but I quit. But as a kid, I picture myself as like a 7-year-old with a cigarette going, when the fuck is this shit? I just need to be a grown up.
Oh
I
yeah,
was, waiting to be a
I
grown
hated
up.
childhood. I
Yeah,
really
I
couldn't stand
wasn't,
it.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And I feel like, those people who are like, it was the best time of my life. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking
No,
about?
I always wanted to be older. And it wasn't, and it's not in one of those ways now where I'm like, man, I really wish that I had appreciated being 7. Like, no, I really, really, I remember feeling very frustrated that nobody would take me seriously, and that I was being always like, pat on the head, like, oh yeah.
But that's when I realized that the great thing about, because listen, growing old is a privilege, right? I had a brother who passed at 28. Not everyone gets to grow old, people. It's a privilege. But I realize now that I'm this age, people had to take me seriously, actually. Oh, simply because of the numbers. I'm still same goofy me, but now I'm an adult, And so that's why I was like, well, yeah, I will write a book, especially on a topic I actually know a lot about.
I want to mention though that when it comes to love stuff, I'm
Oh
very,
yeah.
very, very excited for 2022 for you.
Wait, yeah, let's hear, because I want to know, because it is the one thing you're not supposed to tell the people the information, but she can see it in my chart. And I think I've talked about it in the book. I actually have an essay about it. Like I said, I've manifested some tremendous, amazing man. I mean, these guys are spectacular. I've got songs written about me. I've got poems written about me by these artists, but it isn't anything that was lasting and or particularly compatible.
Yeah. So an interesting thing in your chart is that you have Chiron and Saturn conjunct. This is a very powerful placement. And it's a very,
Is that bad?
no, it's not bad, but it's something to reconcile. It's something to know how to work with. You actually have a really interesting, beautiful trine between your Saturn, Chiron, and your Sun.
And
You
Chiron
have,
means there's a wounding there, right?
that's right. And it's also opposing Pluto and
Oh,
Mars.
that's my planet.
Almost exactly. Almost exact opposition between these. And what this sort of feels and looks like to me is there's a lot of softness that needs to be in your relationship, because there's a lot that needs to be, it needs to be safe. It needs to be really, really safe for you. It needs to be safe for you to transform. It needs to be safe for you to be as spiritual as you need to be. It needs to be safe for you to be as strong as you are.
Even just to be in the relationship, it needs to be safe. Because I remember this one guy said to me, like after like the second or third day, he was like, I know everything about you. And I was like, oh, as a Scorpio, can
Impossible.
you imagine
Impossible.
my face? I was like,
impossible.
no, it was nuts to me. I thought, you think you know everything about me based on 3 dates and a little intimacy? No, you don't know any. It's an onion. People are onions to be unpeeled.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
I mean, to me, I would
that was it. It was a red flag. Just that
very red
statement.
flag. That's a really
Actually,
very disturbing
well,
statement.
it was very judgmental. It was
Yeah.
judgmental. So I was like, oh, and that didn't feel safe.
No,
Obviously,
no. And it's presumptive to say something like that,
or it could have been designed to actually, I don't think it was. I think it was a spur of the moment thought, but it could have been designed to hurt. But here we go, people. Here's where it doesn't really matter what the other person's motivation is in situations. This is another thing I've learned, that when I'm doing readings or so much, doesn't mean I won't do a reading about someone or whatever, but really, don't you think we all spend so much time going, well, why did they worry about someone else's motivation when it's our own triggering, it's our own abandonment issues, it's our own stuff, that laser focus. If we recouped all the time we thought about other people and placed it on our own spiritual growth, oh my God,
Yes.
The world would be vibrating differently.
Yes. I mean, it's also important to remember that we'll never see another perspective other than the one that we have in our own chart.
Well, all right. So anyway, back what 2021's a wash?
No, 2021 isn't a wash, but 2022 is going to be really phenomenal for you. I mean, 2022, we could look back to old dates to see, what was going on the last time Jupiter was in Pisces. So that would have been the year 2010.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Where I was not dating anyone. Here's my truth. I think it's really true. I rarely, if ever, get asked out too. It's the truth. So I think guys think I'm taken or out of their league or something like that, or I don't know, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking about Instagram ass out. Like I got guys in my DMs going, "What's up?" But sir or madam or whatever. But I date guys, but like sir or madam, how about this? How about you introduce your goddamn motherfucking self instead of like when guys write, "I want to take you out." I'm like, you've just shown me you're comfortable stating your own needs.
How do you put yourself out there? How do you make yourself available to love?
What?
I mean,
I know.
is it going to knock at your door?
No, I do get out there actually. Like before the pandemic, I was going out. Me and my friend were marveling. We were going out a lot, and we were like, we went out a lot. And
I think you're going to meet someone at a music show.
Oh, I'll buy that for $1. And now that the pandemic's over, like all bets are off for the pandemic, right? I just had to not call that a wash. I am on a very exclusive dating app where everyone's famous, or a DJ, an aging DJ who just got back from Ibiza.
If it's Raya, then they're also maybe a model photographer, which was a nonstop truth when I was on that app. I was like,
Lady,
oh my God.
I know, I haven't checked it in months because I was like, you ain't gonna get no date off that, but you are going to run into a lot of your friends on there. That's what I've seen. That's the only one I've been on, because I went on a normal dating app and it wasn't for me. How's that? It was too moss. But yeah, I agree. Like I said, you have to, one of my realizations was, you kind of have to make it a priority. And a word that you used, which was really good, was something you said, soft. And I think it's something I said in the live I did with Mary Kay Greer that I had just been noticing, like my friends, when they're with their men, they're different. They're different. And when I was younger, I used to think, what the fuck is wrong with them? Now I'm like, oh, Rachel, they're just being soft. They're showing another side of themselves that was brought around by the love they're feeling. And so, I was like, there's a softer side to a Capricorn Scorpio. We just have to unearth her.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, I look to the descendant, I look to see what's going on across the way. So it's the opposite of your rising sign.
What?
So your rising is the ascendant, and your descendant is what was setting, what zodiac sign would be on the other side of the horizon when you were born. So this,
what is that?
It shows the 7th house. So it shows, how you imagine other to be, so it's both you as it relates to other, and then it's also kind of like what your ideal other is, what complements your chart, but it's not you. It has to be you on the other side of the horizon, and which is Cancer, because you're a Capricorn rising.
I could see that. Yeah, the 6 months from that. Gotcha.
Exactly. So the energy around both having a lot of water planets, having Chiron and Saturn conjunct in Pisces, having a Cancer descendant, and then also having a Virgo stellium in your 8th house, like you need to be with like a healer, you need to be with someone who is like ready to who isn't like healing, like not healing for Instagram's sake healing, you know what I mean? Like healing who is like really gone through a lot in their life, is seasoned, is no bullshit.
I like a grown up, by the way. I really do. I love a grown up. I get asked that by much younger guys. I should count them, but I don't. But I prefer grown up because my humor, and it's just we have more in common. Frankly, I'm not ruling out a younger guy, but I don't mind a grown up. Although men my age, so crabby.
I just this year we're going to have Jupiter is in Pisces right now. It's going to soon go back into Aquarius. But next year is going to be just with Jupiter in Pisces. It's just going to be a phenomenal year for art and music and creativity and spirituality. And it's just, I feel like there's going to be a renaissance.
I have one more question for you about this chart. Because when I looked at it, I was like, I don't have any planets in like my 4th house, which would be relationships, but I have a bunch of planets in the 10th house. And then no planets or one planet in the 12th house. What does that mean exactly when there's no planets at all in a house and then a clump in another?
It's really actually what it means when there's a clump is when it's a stellium, and it's it's a concentration of energy. And the 4th house is home and family. The 7th house is relationships, and you do have Jupiter, the planet of expansion, in your 7th house.
So that's something
you
in
do
this
have something,
life.
but to not have something in a house actually doesn't really mean much of anything. It's
okay.
more, we focus more on where things are to see where things show up. But then beyond that, everything is on an axis. So even if, so let's say for you, you have a ton in your 10th house, you don't have any personal planets or any planets in your 4th house. The 10th house planets are still speaking to the 4th house because they're on that axis.
Oh, and then the other thing I thought was interesting about being, Gen X age is somebody brought up, well, you've got another Saturn return coming. And I was like, fuck, that's true. And but then I looked back, I found someone who told me when my last one was, and I was like, listen, that was great. That was a fabulous time in my life. If that was my Saturn return, it was amazing. So
well, that's something to look forward to then.
Well, that's what I was saying to them, because they were kind of saying it. You know how some astrologers, tarot readers, whoever, esoteric workers will say in kind of a heavy way, man. And it's almost like I couldn't tell. Are you trying to get me to come back or what? Or warn me? I don't know. Maybe it was just genuine concern, but I was like, I'm cool, man. Because also there's that Capricorn part of me that's like, it doesn't really, even if you told me it was the worst time ever, what the fuck can I do?
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah. So it's all going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're still here.
Right. Because it has to be, and I'll roll with it. Like I do everything. But my first Saturn return was amazing.
Well, as a Capricorn rising, that doesn't surprise me. Well, Capricorn rising, Capricorn moon. Yeah, because Saturn's ruled by Capricorn. Or vice versa. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. I will say
it was very tough on me when Saturn was in Scorpio for a couple of years ago. Like I felt like that was a challenging time. But
yeah, I mean, Saturn on your sun is a hard time.
It was, girl.
Yeah, Saturn on the sun is hard.
But
let's
like
pull a card and see how that relates to what's something that we need to know. I'm using good old fashioned Rider-Waite right here. Well, as it relates
by the way, I'm glad you're using Rider-Waite, because again, I love all the new decks and I love the diversity, right? But I also still love Rider-Waite. And I bring this up to say I saw someone on Instagram is trying to cancel it. And I was like, listen, you don't have to use it. You don't have to use it. But as far as the system that it is, I think it's a great system, right? And the same way about psychology, because half the people I admire, I don't want to know what their goddamn thoughts on blacks or Jews was. That's the truth. Yeah. Right? Because
I saw someone trying to cancel this too for the devil and for calling it anti-Semitic. And I was like, okay, I'm Jewish.
I'm going to use it. My dad's Jewish, so when I did my DNA, I'm very much a Jew. And I just thought, okay, I understand wanting to, but just use a different one. Then you want more inclusive. There's a million decks out there now. It's not one or the other. If we keep erasing history, like, yes, we don't want the Confederate statue up in the thing. If you want to put it in a museum of our shame, go right ahead, though. To never forget. Right? That's what I said. And you're Jewish, you understand this. Juneteenth is a holiday now. It's the day the slaves learned. A lot of the slaves learned they were free as opposed to the actual day. And to me, it's not a celebratory thing. It is a never forget thing. Totally. It's very much the same as
I have been very weirded out by people saying celebrate it. It's like, ooh, that's
never forget, like never forget. Word. Just like my Jewish brothers and sisters, never forget.
Right.
That's what I say. Anyway, all right. So
let's see. What do we need to know? What's it?
All right, I guess pull a card for love. We were talking about that, romance, love, whatever, or yeah.
Yeah, I think that this could be a good sort of like, this could be a peek in something that is to keep in mind, something that is maybe a different perspective. Something we need to know about Rachel's love. That's what we are pulling for right now. I always try to really communicate with the deck so that it knows what I'm talking about and I know what I'm talking about. So there's no misunderstandings. Okay. Do you want me to pull from pile 1, pile 2, or pile 3?
3.
Beautiful.
Oh God, I'm stunned. I'm 2 or 3, but 3. We'll go with 3.
3 is great. I love 3. 3 is a great pile. Okay, let's see. This is it. Knight of Pentacles.
Well, how do you interpret that in terms of what we?
Yes. So I mean, I love a Knight in Pentacles for this
slow moving but solid.
Yeah, and also like maybe I would say that this might be someone who is in the process of getting their shit together. but they are actively getting their shit together. You know, maybe this is someone who was divorced, right? Maybe this is what's actually just kind of intuitively coming to me right now. Someone who was divorced, someone who had like a really ugly divorce. Maybe there were like a lot of finances. Maybe there's a fucking alimony thing that they have to deal with, whatever it is. But they're Knight of Pentacles. They are focused. They're committed. They're steady. They're on their way up. They are taking it seriously, and they're taking their sort of like financial recovery very seriously. So it's someone who has, but you know, I also am embedding this with what, based on your chart, I think you need, which is someone who's, you know, not like a fucking virgin, you know, someone who's a seasoned person who's lived a full life and can actually have the conversations with you that you want to have. Things like, you know, whose responsibility is it? Where's the onus? Like, those are really good conversations that you and a partner together are going to be able to like excite each other and be impassioned by, and not feel like, oh my God, if I open up this can of worms, then this person is going to like piece the fuck out. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think that this is someone who is getting their finances together, who has the best interest for really wanting to create a stable life for themselves. So this, to me, the energy is someone who like might be, you know, it's definitely not a fuck boy. That's for sure. It's definitely not that. So I would say it's like focusing, it's putting your energy into places where people are going to be serious. So like if you're on Raya or whatever, for instance, like, and you get the intuitive, like this person is really just here to get laid, like there's no point of exploring it. You know, it's like, don't even waste your time. Focus on people who you know are serious and invest your energy where it counts.
No, I would agree, because I think I'm looking for a partner, you know, at this point, like a possibility of something longer term, you know,
yeah,
would be
and
fun.
someone who's like actually, you know, who's not just going to, who's not like using you to as a way of self-actualizing, but someone who actually is interested in self-actualizing together.
It's this morning I was thinking like, why do guys who don't ghost me or don't talk to me drop my name to other people? And then like I'll hear from the other people and it's like, that bitch, they don't even talk to me. Why are they talking about me to anyone?
I think that I also just intuitively got this, which is that I think it's somebody who doesn't know your work. I think
which
it's
would
someone,
be fine.
Yeah, I think it's someone who doesn't know, like who doesn't have any preconceived notions about who you are, what your work is, you know, like what your past has been. I think it's someone who would be basically coming to you very neutrally and new, and then would be like surprised by your journey and all the things you've accomplished, but that's not initially why they're interested.
No, that would be perfect, because some of the guys in my DMs, I'm like, if you think me sitting at a lunch answering questions about a movie I did in the 90s would be fun for me, it wouldn't. No, but really, like, that's fun for you. It's not fun for me. Yeah. And that's why I say to some of these DM guys, like, it's interesting. They don't understand that what they're saying is, I want this.
Right.
That's it. You're not saying why I would want this. Why would Rachel be interested? You know, so I think some of the guys might even have a shot if they actually composed an email worth its salt instead of, I like you. I'm like, I like me too.
Yeah, I specifically really don't think this is going to be someone in your DMs.
No, I don't. I don't either. But I do. I looked through the DMs because I had a stalker and a 10-year restraining order off social media. So I look through them just to make sure there's no one too kooky crawling through. And once in a while, you know, somebody young will send me an email, a lovely email, and I'll answer them in there, a DM or whatever, because there's nothing like encouraging someone who's sort of coming up, you know, and and it's clear they're doing their work.
So one question for you, which is, how does magic show up in your life?
I would say, I mean, it's weird because the thought that pops in my mind is like, how doesn't it show up, to be honest? You know, I think that magic is everywhere, you know, and there's certainly days where nothing feels magical, by the way, but sometimes when everything goes wrong, like that's not magic either, man, for everything to have gone wrong. So I think it's everywhere. It's in everything. That's why I say, like, I call myself an artist, because there's magic in that, in creating, whether it's writing or I like to sew old-timey clothes, or creating something out of a flat 1D thing into a 3D. There's magic in thought when you have an epiphany, which is, again, for people who are scared of the tower, which I get. I use that for the death of my brother in my book, but the truth is the tower can be a spiritual epiphany too. It doesn't always have to be a horrible, dramatic, terrible, no good, bad ending. It can be a bolt of inspiration, which is magic in itself. But I don't know. I mean, I wish I had a, deeper, better answer for that. But I think of magic as me. We're all magic, because people will say, well, again, back to the, are you a witch, or what do you do? And I will do some kitchen witch shit sometimes. But the truth is I don't do that much, because I am the spell. I am the spell, That's me. I'm not saying everyone else has to operate in the same paradigm, but I'm saying I don't. Now, I realized a while back that, like, it's so easy when you start something new, or you want to do something, create, manifest something, to go out and run out and buy the paraphernalia of it, the things of it. And that's not what it's about, magic, man. You could pick a rock from your backyard, and you don't need to go to the store and buy a $40 rock. Everything is imbued with magic. You have to open it up and open yourself up to it. I'm not against buying. I love crystals and things that I spend money on, by the way.
No,
I'm not knocking them, but I'm saying
my crystal collection looks a lot like this.
Right. And what I'm saying is, people, especially
Rocks.
today, you go, I need to go buy or spend money, or even to write a book. People will go out and say, well, I need a new laptop, and I need new notebooks, and I need new pen. You don't. Those are all things we're putting in our way between us and manifesting. I'm not saying you don't need paper and pencil to write. You do, or a computer to write. But you understand what I'm saying? It's this thing where we go, well, I can't really do that until I have the actual crystal that they mentioned on that blog. And I have you don't need all that. It's all great and it all helps, but you don't need all that. The magic is already within you. It's partially why I wanted to write the book, because I think that tarot and tarot cards are a particularly succinct and great way to unlock your own personal magic.
Yes, I love that. It's so beautiful. It completely aligns with my practice and all of the things that I continue to emphasize, because I really believe in them. You deem an object magic, and it doesn't matter what
you deem it
is.
magic.
Yeah.
Right. That's why, again, when it's like when you get the new deck, whether it's mine or anyone's, doesn't matter. It isn't the deck that's magic. Yes, there's magic into that. My artist, Stephanie Singleton, right, put a lot of energy. And so there's the magic of creation in the images. That's magic. But doesn't matter which one. However, it's all about what you see in it. And that's the magic. That's the beauty. And it's empowering.
Right. And it's consciousness. I mean, and I think that's the secret sauce is consciousness. And the more consciousness you bring in, the more awareness, the more curiosity, the more compassion, all of those attributes of consciousness, that animates everything.
It's why I think I'm able to, even though I'm a Capricorn Scorpion, to apologize when I am wrong, because I get that, like, oh, that's magic too, isn't it? It may be uncomfortable and feel shitty and weird to own up to something, but in owning it and saying, yes, I acknowledge this side that I am not in love with, and I'm going to shift it. That's the magic too, to be able to shift, come into consciousness, and then start working with your own energy, so you don't feel like you're being blown around in the wind so much.
Yes, I love that. And that actually reminds me of the Knight of Pentacles that we pulled for you. I think that
he's
that's
solid. Yeah, he's not being blown around.
Yeah, and I really, really feel like, you can hold me to this, that next year, 2022, when we have Jupiter on Chiron Saturn, which is going to be like March, April 2022, you are absolutely either going to be in a relationship or meeting the person that you're in a relationship with at that time.
She said a whole nother year away, people.
I didn't. It's not a year. It's not a year. It's less than a year, and it's worth it.
Wait,
because
okay,
these transits don't come around all that often.
Oh, yeah, okay. All my horoscopes keep saying someone's going to come back around right now, but I don't really feel that for Scorpio. What's your take on that? I'm not really looking for someone to come back
Well, I
around
mean,
either.
someone come back around. Yeah, it's Mercury fucking retrograde. Of course,
Oh.
everyone's coming back around, but it's not necessarily, we're not trying to come back around. We're trying to go forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. Doesn't mean it's not normal to have our feelings about the past, but I do kind of get like, oh, there's excitement in the future.
I would say that as we get closer to Leo season, things look, there's like more openings, more portals for relationships to come through. But honestly, I really feel like it would be even worth holding out until 2022. Like keep your portals open, keep meeting people, keep engaging. But Jupiter in Pisces and Jupiter connecting with Chiron and Saturn is so fucking special and so important.
When does that start? In April?
Well, it started already, but then it's going to go retrograde. But then in December, at the end of December, it's going to come back into Pisces, and then it's going to beeline like right for those, and it's going to be really profound. And it also aligns because it's in your second house of finances, and it's kind of Taurus theme, and Knight of Pentacles is kind of Taurus theme. So like there's a lot that's sort of synchronizing right now over that.
I'll buy that for now. Here's my next question. How do I get, like I said before, like I like grown-up men, my own age, but how do I get all the grandpas out of my DMs going, hey, we should go out because I'm old too. They literally say that. And I'm like, see, that is not the way.
I have no active solutions on managing a DM box. For me, it is literally just like my jaws.
No, I know. That's why I like this. I know, because they always like amuse me. Like I'm like, oh my God. And also just because we're both a certain age doesn't mean we're compatible either. That's the other thing for some of those guys. Because a lot of these guys are like, I'm really useful too, like you. And then one guy was like, he went to bed, he told me that, and then he like conked out at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. And I was like, you're not like me. I told you.
Proof.
I'm a night owl, energetic lady. So yeah, we'll see. You're
gonna have to keep me posted, Rachel. Keep all of us posted. But in the meantime, where can we find you and find your book? And how could we stay sort of abreast of all of the amazing things that you're creating and making in your life as an artist?
Yeah, I'm working on scripts right now too, writing scripts. So just writing in general, I really enjoy because it's a brain thing as opposed to
energy for you.
Yeah, as opposed to how I look, which is what most of an acting career is. Mostly you can find me Instagram. I'm at True Rachel True. That's my last name, and then my whole name, True Rachel True. And on Twitter, I'm at Rachel True. And those are the main, I'm not on social media as much as I used to be. Those are the main places I hang out. I like to put up some little shorts in my Instagram stories, meaning I just like to do a little cinema verite of my day sometimes. And I'll put it up there. That seems to entertain people. Yeah, those are the spots.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to in my Knight of Pentacles in an entire year away from now. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.